talk about you for a few minutes, shall we? Because we were talking last night, and I wanted to talk to you about the fact that I was looking through your videos, and like I said, I'd watched since Roaming Millennial back then too.
So awesome.
But I was paying attention to the fact that there seemed to be a lot more uploads to Mediaholic lately, which is your channel in which you cover stuff like this.
Yeah.
So is there been a decided choice to upload more to that channel rather than political stuff lately?
So for people who don't subscribe to me yet, but you will.
Should.
I started off doing videos on my main channel, which is just my name, Lauren Chen, and it's social, political stuff, kind of like what Tim does. And what is it, maybe 2 and a bit years ago, I actually started a second channel, Mediaholic, that initially was just a side project for fun because I love movies, love talking about entertainment and pop culture stuff like on this show, and I wanted a different place to do it. But now it's almost like you were saying, I upload there more than my main channel, and it's honestly because I'm just more excited about the cultural stuff, about the entertainment stuff. I mean, I've found the news cycle for the past month pretty uninteresting, which is why I haven't done any main channel videos. But simultaneously, we've had, Indiana Jones 5 come out. We've had, a few weeks ago, Cleopatra on Netflix that everyone was hating on. The Witcher Season 3. I'm getting ready to do a review on that. There's just so much more to talk about, or at least that's interesting me currently.
The news cycle is so fast. Like Cleopatra feels like a lifetime.
Yeah, I know,
ago.
right? When you mentioned that, I forgot that it happened.
It's like that was like 5 controversies ago, and that was like holy crap, right? So, when doing that, and you're a mom now.
Yes.
So has the way that media's gone, especially with whether we're talking about Indiana Jones, all these things, there's obviously going to be a lot of talk about whether things are the right thing to be put in the media.
Mm-hmm.
One thing we like to trash on is like the horrible reality shows that get made, like MILF Manor and stuff like this, right? Like, has waking up to the culture and being somebody who creates content, has that made it open your eyes more to what you're going to be allowing the kids to watch?
I don't see how it could be any other way, right? Because my dad and I, who does some reviews with me, we went to go see like Lightyear and Strange World, and my daughter, she's too young to take the movies right now, but just sitting in that chair the whole time I was thinking I would never actually take my child to see this. There are so many things we can't take for granted that family movies are as wholesome and non-controversial as when we were kids, because they're just not. They're trying to put social messaging in there. Disney, an employee was caught on camera saying, not caught on camera, she said it on camera, like purposefully, like not so secret gay agenda is being pushed.
That lady was the lady who recently left, was the one who was the head of that entire
diversity
movement. And that wasn't getting caught on camera. That was literally saying, we are doing it, we're doing it on purpose.
I'm saying this in our Zoom meeting because I'm proud of it. So absolutely, I would not at this point let my child watch something that I hadn't already seen. And I don't want to be like that mom, but I was talking to a friend from college who's not political at all, and he was saying how he just took his kids to see Elemental, and I was just like,
It's not even just the socio-political messaging that's in family entertainment now. It's also just that the stories are so much less imaginative and creative.
They're just not as good,
And taking your kids to see a Pixar movie, whether it's politicized or not, it can like kill the imagination of the next generation. That all of this is just stuff that's made by adults for themselves.
Right. That's why with Pixar lately, any concept they have now is like, oh, this wacky concept, but it's actually like a city, like New York. Like that's what Elemental was, and like that was kind of cool at first. They kind of did the monster version of that with like Monsters Inc. But it gets kind of old. And I remember when I was in college, I did screenwriting for a bit. They would always say, write what you know, write what you know. And I understand the theory and concept of that, but after a certain point it's like, but then what's the point of having an imagination or fantasy? We want to get out of what we know when we go see movies sometimes.
And it's one of the problems of a lot of these, a lot of Hollywood now, is you're not allowed to write anything other than what you know, right?
Yeah.
So that would talk about when Christopher Priest would talk about writing comics. He'd say that like when he was a younger writer, he was allowed to write anything that he wanted because as a writer, it's your job to do the research. I always list Tom Clancy. He wasn't in the military, but he made great military fiction because he did a crap ton of research and he worked hard to get the details right. Getting the details right requires research and work, but now they don't want you to do the research and work. They want you to just make everything a self-insert. And that's not interesting nor imaginative. And it's beyond that even further because they're actually culturally enforcing that it's bad to write something more than what you know. I don't know if you guys saw this story from, it was like 3 years ago, about this lady who wrote, she was like an executive at like a firm, at like a law firm or like a marketing agency. She had a very corporate job, and she wrote a book, a YA novel that got published or was getting published, and like got ragged on because it was I believe she was either Japanese or Chinese.
I remember hearing about this.
You remember this story,
Yeah.
right? And she got bullied so hard, she pulled her own book. First of all, she did exactly what she shouldn't do. She bent the knee.
Yeah.
She made the changes. They're like, you can't write about slavery because apparently only America has ever experienced slavery. So what would you know about it, right? And she did the wrong thing. She bent the knee. She removed it, and then eventually just pulled the book altogether because these people lack joy and they're not actually creative, nor do they enjoy actually bringing things to life. What they want to do is sit there and be the judge of what everybody else brings to life so that they can build it, so they can strip it down and make it fit within their ideological viewpoint. That's, first of all, extremely depressing, but it's kind of a thief of joy in a lot of things. All of these things should be joyful. Like when I was criticizing Indiana Jones, I said, more than anything, I feel like it doesn't go forward with love. It doesn't go forward with love for the character. Mm-hmm. It doesn't go forward with love for adventure. It feels very corporate and produced, and that's the real problem here is everything you're seeing now. Whether we're talking about Disney and Pixar back then, Disney might have been a staple, but it was the wild, wild west in entertainment at that time, and they were making stuff and creating things to get ahead in the market. Same thing with Pixar. Disney ended up having to buy Pixar because they were cutting into their market share. There's none of that anymore. It's all just create the safest content we can with the most political messaging that we can either sneak in there because we want to appeal to an audience that doesn't go to the movies anyways. They don't spend money. At least that seems to be what I've noticed over the years. They don't actually come out in force for this stuff. And I don't know if this is something that we can do beyond just having to make our own stuff. Obviously, Eric D. July is doing that. Mm-hmm. There's comic creators. There's people. We talked with Paul Rowland, who did Exemplum, who made a fantastic movie on a budget of $9,000. Like, there's a lot of ways this stuff can be combated. But it's interesting because I do believe that this stuff is now more interesting than the political cycle and far more important to what we're covering.
No, you're right about that. And the thing with, I guess, people who are really interested in the political cycle, when you ignore culture, which is what conservatives and people on the right did for like literally generations, but cultural messaging is basically political messaging, you can't act surprised like, oh, why is everybody left? Why is everybody a different gender now? It's like, have you not been watching Netflix for the past, however many years? It's because this is what's being promoted. So, I mean, politics is downstream of culture. It's not the other way around. So you can't ignore it. And
so you mentioned you're in some group chats with other moms. Do you feel like the sentiment is growing amongst parents these days? Or like, I'm not plugged into that. It just seems like parents are either shielding their kids excessively from the culture, or they're like plopping them in front of the TV or the iPad, watching Cocomelon, watching like whatever comes up in their algorithm, and it's like the two extreme poles. But like, what do you feel the sentiment is with other parents right now?
Well, I feel other parents, even ones who aren't political and maybe who don't want to be political, they're at the very least waking up to the fact that companies like Disney, they've really changed a lot in what their goal seems to be in regard to entertainment. I mean, we saw that with Strange World and Lightyear. Like, these should have been huge movies for Disney, but they weren't. They lost tons and tons of money. It's because ultimately parents, they just want to have nice, wholesome entertainment. They're not bringing their kids to have some sort of political message shoved at them so they can have an awkward conversation in a car ride home about how two women can have a baby or something like happened in Lightyear. And so parents are just kind of pretty sick of it. And I think that's why Disney is continuing to struggle, and they will keep struggling as long as Disney doesn't accept that they are not actually parental figures in this dynamic. They're just there to entertain with wholesome stuff.
They see themselves as that, though. It's the same type of ivory tower mindset that all of these people have, right? It's not just that they're making their entertainment for you and that you should just take whatever they serve and enjoy it, that they know what's best for you and your children.
Right.
These people, especially female executives at these companies who don't actually have children of their own,
right,
are using media to indoctrinate and teach children, which is like, I guess, their surrogate child is like the audience that they have control over.
Yeah. And you mentioned Cocomelon, which is like, I don't think Cocomelon is woke or anything, but I think
But it is mindless.
It is mindless, and people our age, I mean, I think my parents they couldn't have known like what the effects of video games were on the brain for someone young, because I don't think there was that kind of research and conversation happening at that time. But I feel like parents who are younger, we now recognize that, yeah, we need to be wary about, for example, junk food for our kids, but there's also junk media. And so that's something that I think, the crunchy moms out there, especially, like, there's a whole new wave of parents who are saying, okay, 0 screen time, because I know that this is going to affect your, attention span, just your development, whatever it may be.
It absolutely is, because my attention span is shot from social media, ladies and gentlemen.
I don't think that you should shield your kids from everything, though, because if you shield them from where the culture is for years and years and, don't allow them to have any exposure to it, then you're sending them out into the adult world and they don't have any preparation or like tools to respond to any of this insanity.
You have to be able to have let them go at a certain point, but be able to have those conversations with them openly and honestly.
And ideally those conversations would happen when a kid is old enough to ask the question, not when Disney introduces them to an idea.
Exactly. So I think for a lot of these things, it's like, it's not that I want my kids to never watch a movie ever, because obviously I love movies. I have a whole channel about them, so it can be a fun thing, right? It should be a fun thing where like a family goes out with like movies, theater together, popcorn, like that's just such a quintessential part of my childhood memories. But it's about, what are we watching, how much are we watching it?
I will point out that, like, look, back in the day, RoboCop was had toys for kids. RoboCop is not a movie for kids, right? Like the 80s was they were different back then, right? Like it's one of my favorite things. It's watching old stuff like that and being like, wow, they really just let us watch anything. But that was just like violence for the sake of violence back then, which was something that still, I think, at your core you can inherently know is more wrong than these social issues, which are far murkier than the idea that like that RoboCop just taking out a bunch of executives is not necessarily the safest thing.
Well, as Cher Horowitz said, until we can stop having violence on the news, there's no use in taking it out of TV and movies for entertainment value.
Exactly. Yeah. I do want to ask you this, because I asked you to think about it last night. I said, is there anything, we complain a lot here. It happens. Most of these channels, they tend to be critical because you do want to hold these companies accountable so that they'll hopefully at some point make changes and do better. Is there anything, however, that you think has been very good recently?
So very good is hard, but with that said, I watched season 3 of Jack Ryan. I enjoyed that. I like John Krasinski. I have the caveat that it is very clearly CIA propaganda, but it's interesting. I think it's well written. I don't think it's woke or anything like that. So that's fun. If you're into that genre, I think that's done well. I'm in the middle of watching Reacher. I'm very late to the game on that one.
I sang the praises of Reacher for like 2 years because I was like, look, if you're looking for something that is the quintessence, like this is exactly what you should be looking for. Amazon is the weirdest company because they are as hit and miss as it gets.
They have Rings of Power, but also this. It's
And my theory on that is like, look, when you're making a Reacher or a Jack Ryan, you're looking for the middle-aged dad market who are going to watch that stuff. But when you're making the Rings of Power, you're looking to grab the younger market. That's where they shove the messaging in, because they're looking, they look at the market of the Jack Ryans and the Reachers. That's a lost market to them. They're like, we'll make it. Maybe it makes us some money. It's good to have the IP, but they don't need to insert it there because the dads will just tune out.
Right.
The kids are more vulnerable to this stuff in the fantasy media.
So do you think, and this is something that's worrying me, because obviously Warhammer 40K, this huge property, Amazon's going to be doing something with Henry Cavill. Which way do you think that's going to go? Which way?
It depends on how much power he ends up having as a producer on that project, right? Because the instinct, I believe, will be to shove in as much messaging as possible, because that's how they view that genre.
With what we know about how he, pushed back on the Witcher producers, I think he's going to have more control over this. He's not going to let it get ruined.
Let's hope, because I don't know how much more heartbreak Henry Cavill can take.
How many more series can ditch him or he leaves before?
Like what hope does the rest of America or the world have when this is the guy who can't seem to catch a break? He's like, it's funny too, because I was rewatching Count of Monte Cristo recently, and he's in the Count of Monte Cristo, like very young. Like if this guy who's basically built like a Titan can't seem to catch a break, then what hope do the rest of us have, I ask you? So yes, is there anything you're looking forward to?
I mean, like I said, I'm looking forward to the Barbie movie, probably not for the expectation that is good. However, Oppenheimer, my husband wants to see it. We'll go see it. It's not necessarily my genre. I'm not as much into straight drama. It's a little bit heavy for me. I cry very easily during movies. I try to avoid that. But I think it will be good, especially like Cillian Murphy. I do really like him as an actor. Peaky Blinders was the series that I really enjoyed. So I'm excited to see that for him.
Did you see the Ron DeSantis war
I
room
did,
thing?
yeah. That they shouldn't have used that clip. I think they were just asking to be denounced at that point.
Well, they were just reposting something that someone had, like some fan account had posted before.
Yeah,
right?
somebody else made it.
Yeah, okay.
I don't think Ron DeSantis is hiring people that are good at making Sigma male grind set edits.
He's too boring to do
he's
that.
too
Like I
boring
don't
to
imagine that
figure out where the culture is at.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.